What we're wanting to see is a pivot. I call it the disc pivot. So looking like if I was throwing straight at the ground, it would be whack. And that's how you see these guys with the wrist extension past impact. That's how you see whack, right? So the harder you do that, the harder it snaps. The funny thing is, not all discs like to be snapped that hard. Some discs, you can actually, with the way I throw, I actually kind of decide, like on some discs, like putters, I actually throw more around the center. So instead of slinging the furthest point, I sling more of the center, so I get more of a spinny throw. The head doesn't swing around as much, my wrist doesn't open up as much, the nose. The more you swing the nose around, the more nose down the disc is. The more you get through the bat, the handle, the more the handle gets through, the head gets through, the more nose down it will start. A lot of putters and what have you do much better if you kind of end up, you actually throw more of what I call a spin throw. So if you're working your hand around the nose of the disc, working your hand, we're going to use the clock system, which is, that's 12 o'clock, this is 9 o'clock, 3 o'clock. So your hand ends up being at 9 o'clock on the inward pull. It stays at 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Now it starts to work around, and as it works around, you reach a point that I call the apex. This is the point where you can no longer move forward. You run out of arm, is what I call it. And your wrist begins to open up, your shoulders are opening. So now the inward pull is not straight anymore, it starts to curve around, and that's how you end up with a rotary finish. As you start to rotate, that's what allows you to create this angle to sling the head open. And it's all done in a straight line. That's the funny thing. All of this is basically to throw that head right down the line. This is not like inward, outward. There's no curves anywhere, really. It's all nice and straight. It's just that you're kind of working your way around the nose of the disc. In a hard snap, I actually push the disc up into my arm as hard as I can, as I try to get a little momentum coming in, so I can pop. And I'm not opening my wrist, it just does that. I'm actually pulling around as hard as I can, but it will fly out simply by the momentum of the disc. That I use an index finger thumb lock for putters, mids, even up to a T-bird. And then once I move into my wide rim drivers, like I throw the Destroyer, I actually marry my two fingers together. I have my index finger and my middle finger. They're married together, and my thumb. So now I'm locking those two fingers together, because I found I simply cannot get enough lock on the wide rims with one finger. So once I married those two together, I'm actually pushing up with two fingers, pushing down on the dome, and I have a very significant grip with those two fingers. The other two fingers are simply there for more for guidance, and they do help grip the disc, but to a certain extent they have to release. Your pinky and ring finger do have to release. They have to, when you start to, like I said, I'll show, like if I was throwing the disc straight at the ground. So if they're over here at 9 o'clock, you actually end up in a position like that. That would be the release. And you can find that also part of it is where you add the strength of your thumb lock. As you come around the nose, you can actually throw the handle, what I call, the base of the handle, actually throwing it harder and harder. Ken Climo showed that. Actually, he talked about that one time. He said it's out, 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 bam, just like you drove a nail with a hammer. He said the exact same thing. The wider the rim of the driver, if I cut this driver in half, look at the rim here and look at the rim here. Okay, there's a great deal more. This basically has a much heavier swing weight, I would say. If I'm holding it here, there's more plastic on the edge of this disc than there is on the edge of say a rock, between a rock and a destroyer. There's a lot, so that creates a higher moment of inertia. What I've found is, from the little bit of testing that I've done, is that putters go faster out of your hand than anything. So you can get, it's a combination of grip, and I also believe it's a combination of the swing weight. Literally, as the rims get wider and wider, basically the weight on the outside, the gyroscopicness of them, makes them harder to swing the head around. So if I'm swinging the head around and this part of the disc is heavier, the outside part, basically the head is getting heavier and heavier and heavier. Okay, so if I'm relying on snap, predominantly snap throwing, and not just pure, God-given speed, which a lot of guys can do without a ton of snap. They can throw 350, 375, not have any snap, but they'll never throw 500 unless they learn how to snap. Actually, discs need to be moving in the other direction technology-wise. We need to lower the moment of inertia. We need to probably raise the diameter to get more leverage. So, and obviously teach people how to throw. That would help too. To demonstrate all the parts of the new vocabulary of the brief description that I've already written. We have with the inward pull, we have the power zone, the apex, and the outward pull. Okay, inward pull, power zone, apex, outward pull. The inward pull is actually just a setup ultimately for the snap. If you're talking in terms of snap, I mean, if you can throw with an inward pull of 90 miles an hour, God love you, but most people can't. The guys who throw with what seemingly is no effort, they don't have this rocket speed. They're actually just using the inward pull to set up for a tremendously powerful snap. And I think that there's a lot of evidence to be shown that that's how forehands are thrown, and certainly how overhand head shots are thrown. And this is how I throw. And I've gone to this method exclusively, and it is by far the easiest method I've ever tried. Another thing that's really great about once you learn to throw the other side of the disc. So now we're throwing the head of the hammer. So as your hand works around, I'm gonna throw like I'm throwing a hyzer so you can see. But as your hand works around the nose, you could throw that with pure throw. It worked perfectly around my hand and left my hand. Or if I wanted to throw an extreme hyzer, for example, I could sling the head underneath my plane. Right? So I throw the head out. What that does is create a nose down hyzer. You see these guys that can throw a cut hyzer that goes out, and they don't even need a stable disc, and it goes out and it cuts in, really long throw. Conversely, if you see the guys who throw the big distance anhyzer, they're all putting a monster pivot. They're throwing the head out so they can get the nose down. So as they throw out to get height, they actually have to throw the back of the disc up to get the nose down into the turn. The more you do that, the more the disc pivots, and you snap the other side and accelerate out of the throw. You cannot throw a powerful anhyzer and finish it with your wrist closed. I mean, I see so many people that are literally, they're here, the disc is gone, their wrist never did anything. So the throwing the other side of the disc, all of a sudden you can throw shots you never could throw before, because you can kind of make torques, and you can like change your plane and go above your plane and below your plane with your sling.